The NFL draft is usually a fun, exciting, and hopeful time of the year. And how could it not be? It's the annual crossover event between the two single biggest entities in all of football, the NFL and the NCAA. It's where you get to see what the future has in place for your favorite college football star that you watch grow up from an 18-year-old raw but talented athlete to a 22-year-old fully developed professional football player ready to take the NFL by storm. It's where, if you're a fan of a bad team, you can hope that your team will draft the next Baker Mayfield or Andrew Luck, who completely turns around the fortunes of your misfortunate franchise. It's a fun guessing game you can play with your friends to show how smart you are or how much you know about college football. It perfectly coincides with the start of spring. For a lot of NFL cities, that's the change from wet, miserable, cold, snowy, blah, to the nice and optimistic and beautiful sunlight and Bermuda shorts of the spring. I don't know why Bermuda shorts came out of my mouth, but nonetheless, it's the one event on the NFL calendar that allows for unbridled, unchecked, unreasonable optimism until your team picks somebody. But give it a few weeks and then you'll be okay with whatever they picked until the preseason. But all that being said, the draft as an event on the NFL calendar is awesome. So why am I just not excited at all for this year's draft? I think one of the first issues with this year's draft is just a complete lack of star power. There's not that guy, that one specific player or that group of players or the two players that are going up against each other that drives a narrative or drives a lot of conversation. There's not. There's a lot of really solid players, but there's not a huge narrative. Kyler Murray versus Dwayne Haskins isn't really that big of a thing because Arizona has made it completely clear who they prefer. And if you look at this draft and compare it to last year's draft that was very exciting, there's not a bunch of quarterbacks that are truly first round worthy like there was last year. There's not somebody who's just a complete and absolute freak show physically and with their play on the field like there was last year with Saquon Barkley. And even when there's star power, they're missing one or two things that makes getting excited about those specific players harder to do. Because in this year's draft, we do have star power and we do have a freak show, but they're not the same player. There's not one single player who puts those two qualities together or has an interesting enough personality to make up for that. If you look at the top of this year's draft, you have somebody who is a legitimate star as far as the college football world goes in Kyler Murray. He was a star in high school. He is labeled as the best high school football player in Texas high school football history. He is an absolute star. He went to Oklahoma and tore it up and won the Heisman Trophy. But he's not physically impressive. He is somebody who, if you look at compared to other NFL talent, has more of an average build. And unlike Baker Mayfield the year before, his personality drives zero conversation because Kyler Murray has the personality of a plain bag of Lay's. And I don't want to make this seem like I don't think Kyler Murray is a good person or, I've seen him get painted as a bad person because he is just terrible on interviews. And I don't think that's the case. I just think he is awkward on interviews. And I think personality-wise, at least what he showed the media, he is the least interesting number one overall pick ever. While he has the excitement on a on-the-field standpoint, I mean, he is as exciting, if not more exciting to watch than a guy like Michael Vick was in Virginia Tech. But he's not a physical freak show. He's not an explosive personality, which has nothing to do with how good of an NFL player he's going to be in the future. But as far as excitement goes for the draft from a fan standpoint, makes me not interested about him. And then when you look at the guy who is the freak show in this draft, who has put up amazing measurables that you don't see every day, well, he wasn't a star in college football. And that guy, of course, is DK Metcalf. He is a legit physical freak. He is like 230 pounds and legitimately runs a 4.33 40. That's wild. He has 1% body fat, which isn't even healthy, but why not, I guess? He is a 6'2", 230-pound beast of a man who has a 40 time that's like a tenth of a second slower than John Ross's. Like, that is a freak show. But with all of those measurables, you would think he would have dominated in college football. And when you look at his stats, domination isn't something that you saw with him at Ole Miss. Honestly, not a lot of people knew about DK Metcalf from what he did at Ole Miss. And then it just leads to a guy who has never had over 1,000 yards in his career being compared to Julio Jones. What? And I don't want to be too negative. As easily as DK Metcalf could become the next Josh Gordon or become Julio Jones because of his immense physical talent, he also can become Kevin White, who had great measurables, didn't do much at West Virginia, and has done nothing in the NFL as of yet. So getting excited about somebody who might get picked in the top 10, who's supposed to be this physical freak, just isn't the same as it's been in previous years. Like, look at the 2018 draft. You had Baker Mayfield, who wasn't a freak show, but was a very engaging and interesting personality. I mean, this is a guy who was able to get documentaries of his story and about who he is sold to FS1 because they knew that people would want to get to know that kind of character. You also had guys who were stars at college football for multiple years. Sam Darnold was at USC for 2 years, exciting people, and people couldn't wait for him to enter the draft before he entered the draft. Baker Mayfield was a guy who you fell in love with or hated because of his personality over the course of 3 years at Oklahoma, playing football at its highest level, reaching the college football playoff twice in 3 years. On the contrast, you got Kyler Murray this year, who had one good season at Oklahoma, and when you followed him before that, he disappointed at Texas A&M. And then you got Drew Lock and Daniel Jones. Drew Lock played at Missouri. Daniel Jones played at Duke. Not the same level of star power and intrigue with those two quarterbacks. Now, you have Dwayne Haskins, who played at Ohio State, was pretty good at Ohio State. He didn't win any big significant awards, and again, only played 1 year at Ohio State. So the two biggest names in the draft this year are guys who you've only been familiar with for a year. So you're not really that invested in their story like you were with a Baker Mayfield last year, or a Sam Darnold, or a Josh Rosen. You know, guys you put multiple years of following into. The second thing is that a lot of the things you would talk about with this year's draft class about quarterbacks or anything else, and it seemed kind of fatigued. Like with Kyler Murray, for example. What are the big talking points with Kyler Murray? He's short. Well, so is Baker. Kyler Murray has only played in the air raid, and how is he going to adjust to the NFL? Well, now the whole NFL runs the air raid, and so will Kyler Murray in the pros, so it's not even a discussion point. That's the problem. A lot of the arguments or a lot of the things or a lot of the players, they just seem like reruns from drafts past. You want to get excited about Alabama defensive lineman Quinnen Williams? Or does he kind of feel like the same exact thing that Jonathan Allen was? Big defensive lineman, dominant, coming out of Alabama from a really good defense. What about Nick Bosa? I mean, he's impressive. He's a star. He's been college football multiple years. Big guy, strong guy. And, so was Joey Bosa, who came out a few years ago, who him and his brother put up almost exact measurables. And while DK Metcalf can awe you physically, he doesn't have the production behind him to make you just assume he's going to be a force in the NFL. And he doesn't have the personality behind him that makes you really want to get behind and see him succeed. Not saying that he's not a good dude. I'm pretty sure he's a really nice and humble guy. That's how he comes off. But I'm talking about as far as interest goes. And to describe the interesting personality bit, I'm going to talk about Myles Garrett, the 2017 number 1 overall pick, who was an absolute physical freak show. I mean, 270 pounds, ran a 4.6 40. As Joe Thomas says, looks unbelievable with his shirt off. And he had the production to back up those freaky numbers. He was a star at Texas A&M. He is a massive and physically impressive individual. But on the other hand, this is a guy who also considered going to Ohio State because he seriously wanted to study dinosaurs in college. Like, get into paleontology as a profession. He exclusively listens to 70s funk music. He's a 270-pound beast of a man who will wear his favorite anime on his shirt while writing poetry inspired by Maya Angelou and still give you moments like this.
What? Serious? What? I'm pass rushing. Come on, because he's getting his fucking ass kicked.
That is a fascinating individual. This is not.
When do you report for the Oakland A's?
February 15th.
Oh, you knew that. Okay. So you're ready to go to do that. Wait, are you going to spring training?
I don't know.
Wait, you don't know? Dad, is he going to spring training? Another no comment here.
And that's the biggest problem with this year's draft. There's not a lot of interesting going on. There's a lot of good football players in this draft. Tons of them. Great guys. Going to be no problem. They're just not interesting. They're not guys who I followed for a while. These aren't star players. There's just a huge lack of star power. And now that's going to change with guys like Jake Fromm and Tua Tagovailoa and eventually Trevor Lawrence that are going to come out in the draft. And their drafts are going to be very exciting. But this year's draft kind of seems like a lull draft. The draft where there's no hot storylines, there's no dysfunction at the top of the draft that makes you think something as stupid as trading the number 2 pick overall for a guy you're going to trade in 3 years for a 7th round 2020 pick, not specifically thinking of one specific move that was stupid, but there's just not that going on. We know what Arizona's going to do with the number 1 overall pick. We know what the top 5 teams are going to do. There's not a lot of intrigue. There's not a lot of interest. There's not a lot of excitement. And no, it's not just because I'm a Browns fan and we don't have a 1st round pick and we're just happy because we got our quarterback last year. The draft this year hasn't been something that's driven a lot of topics or conversation. There's just a lack of star power and interest in this year's draft. And for whatever reason, I wanted to make a video about that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Let me know what you think and tell me in the comment section down below, are you excited about the NFL draft this year? Am I crazy? Am I wrong about Kyler Murray? Is he interesting to you? Do you get excited about Kyler Murray's personality? Or do you feel like he's about as fun and interesting as a trip to Home Depot? Let me know what your thoughts are. Sound off in that comment section down below. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to ring the little notification bell. Hit the like button. If you want to, please check out the Patreon link down below. I have a link there. If you want to, you can donate $1 a month, and that will go towards making sure that I can post more videos and have better content available all the time. Thank you guys for watching the video. Again, hope you guys hit that subscribe button. I'm Quincy Carrier. This is Worst Take. Have a great night.